Yeah. Oh, can you fill me in? Let's talk about it.
Okay, so I am here with Ben Buddy Slack. How are you doing?
Doing good, mate. Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, not a problem at all. I heard about you years ago because I've spoke about this quite a lot since I started doing spoken word. I'm introduced to some amazing people that, in no other aspect of my life, I would ever have been sort of social with, or and an absolutely amazing woman called Liz, and she's
Liz
good
Crossley.
friends with your mum.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure that maybe it was probably about a year ago, maybe just over a year ago, they said you two should probably meet because of the work that you do. They mentioned the prisons and stuff. And it's taken us this long,
Yeah, yeah.
but we're here now, so it's good to finally meet you.
Yeah. As I was saying to you just before, like I remember meeting you years ago, like probably 5 years ago, but it was very brief because I was producing the tech for a show at Chapel FM that you were a guest on. So
Yeah.
you just came in for like 5 or 10 minute section. I remember then like kind of being impressed with what you were saying and thinking like,
Yeah,
I think I probably said to you at the time, we should keep in touch, and and you read some things, but then it's taken us this long to
yeah,
get.
this
get
is
there.
it.
But it's the way it happens, isn't it?
That's one place I've never performed. You know, the upstairs. The
It's beautiful.
yeah, do they still do the upper mic?
Yeah, well, they're closed now, obviously.
Yeah.
And having some renovations done, but I'm sure when it reopens again, they'll do the open mic again.
Yeah, and it's so. I spoke to a couple of poets a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about our favourite performances, and both my top two performances are venue based. So, and that's got that sort of wow factor. It's not just the corner of a pub or
Yeah.
something like that. So it would be a good one to do.
It kind of brings out the best in a lot of performers, I think, when the venue's like that nice.
Yeah.
It just makes it really special. And it's one of the places where you get the sound's always really good, and the crowd are always very respectful because it just has that feel to the venue.
Yeah, and the video element of it as well. So my favourite performance was a theatre for Gemma Baker's night. I'm sure it's Nottingham. I think it's Nottingham. And it was the Word Theatre. So I've got up and performed where it's all red seats, 3 tiers, royal box. And I was just like, wow, look at this guy from a council estate in Beeston. And I'm stood up here. And then what I didn't know is there's a video where the audio was directly connected to the mic. So the sound quality is perfect. And it's just a sort of zoomed out shot of the stage. So you get like the first few rows of the audience. And that would probably have made me more nervous if I'd have known that was a thing. So yeah, it was absolutely amazing. And they do the videos up at Chapel as well, don't they?
Yeah, they've got three HD cameras inbuilt, and they live stream everything as well, so people can watch at home on Facebook and everything like that. It's a great place.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to look into that one.
Yeah.
But we're here to talk about the Swan Song. So tell me what it is. Like, tell people what it is.
So the Swan Song project is a charity that I started in 2017 officially. And it's basically writing songs for people facing the end of their lives, people dealing with bereavement. So I started it. I've been doing songwriting work for a while. I kind of lose track of the years, but I kind of fell into doing community music work. Like I was, songwriting myself and playing in bands and stuff. And then got into this community music work. So I was writing songs with groups of people, and that's where I do a lot of the prison stuff and things like that. And I realised I was getting quite good at it, of like being able to help people draw out what they wanted to write about and help them structure it into a song. And I lost my grandma. Actually, I lost my grandma quite a few years before. But like my grandma used to love music, and she used to, like, a lot of my early memories of playing music at my grandma's house. Like me and my uncle used to get together there and sing songs, and grandma used to sit in a chair in the corner and sing along with us. And
oh wow!
I've got all these really nice memories of that. And then like especially like towards the end of her life, when she was like, there was one particular time she was in a care home. And she was pretty much non-responsive at this time. She's just been there. And me and my uncle sang to the Black Velvet Band, which was her favourite song, an old Irish song. And it's just like she had this it was like she kind of lit up, and we were holding her hands, and she was kind of tapping along. And it was just one of those memories that was like just really powerful, a really beautiful thing at the end. And then it was a few years later, in fact, when my mum had mentioned it, that she'd remember how much her and my great auntie, who was there at the time as well, had been talking about that memory and how powerful it was. And I was thinking, yeah, it was. And I was like, wouldn't it be great if we'd recorded something like that, recorded Grandma singing. So I was thinking on that for a while, and then I thought, like, well, actually, imagine if Grandma had a chance to write a song, how nice that would have been. I wonder what would the things she had said in it, and what would it sounded like. And then it kind of just dawned on me of like, wait a minute, you write songs with people. I wonder if you could, I wonder if you could do this, of like write songs with people near the end of their lives. And then so it seemed like a good idea, and I had the idea for like maybe a year, where like I was kind of, because I was like, it seems like a good idea, but I was like, but it must not be. It must be a reason why I can't do this.
Or why
like,
someone's never done it before.
Yeah, well, like that's what I was kind of like. So I kind of Googled it, and I thought like there must be a big organisation that specialises in this, and I couldn't find anything. So I mean, like, obviously, like there's some hospices. There's been like some other songwriters have done projects like that, and some hospices will have music therapists who'll do bits of songwriting and stuff like that. But there wasn't like a Swan Song project where it's an organisation that specialises in doing that. And yes, I was like, there must be a reason. There must be a reason why I can't do it. And I remember having these like really nervous conversations with my friends, or like starting off with like close friends, and be like, can I ask you something? I've got this idea. I want you to tell me if this sounds like a good idea. And every time I'm being really nervous and expecting them to be like, oh no, of course you can't do that because of this. And I'd be like, oh yeah, you're right, yeah. And every time they'd be like, that sounds like a great idea. Yeah, that sounds really good. Yeah, I can't see any reason why not. And I kind of graduated from like, close friends to people I didn't know as well, and people who were a bit more specialised in these kind of things. And everyone was like, sounds good. So then I wrote to the hospices. I wrote to St Gemma's and Wheatfield here in Leeds, and Mary Curie in Bradford, just saying, this is what I'm thinking of doing. What do you think? Do you think it's something we could do? And they all got back to me, were like, yeah, this sounds great. Yeah, we'd be really happy to have this if possible.
So is this 2016? That was happening?
Back end of 2016, yeah. So then we got some funding from the lottery in 2017, which is, we were just talking about, that learning that side of things is a complete other minefield. And then
I think that puts people off doing stuff.
Yeah.
Because so your other option is charge the hospice, charge the families, and that's we can do this amazing thing, but it's going to cost this amount of money, and then straight away that's a barrier.
Yeah.
So
and the you can obviously, and especially when you're trying something new. So I was like, I didn't actually know if it was going to work. I was kind of like, didn't know if people would be interested in it. I thought it was a good idea, but like maybe if people actually might not want to do it. I didn't know how I was going to manage it myself. Like, so I've done a lot, I've done a lot of songwriting stuff before, but that was mainly group work, which is very different to one-to-one work. And I kind of thought, like, because I like going deep on songs. I like songs to be really meaningful to people and kind of going into those.
You like to make people cry.
I like to make people cry, yeah. Which in a group, sometimes you get in a group, but obviously then there's so many people there and you get different dynamics, so you kind of have to balance it in a way. So I was kind of excited the idea of you can do one-to-one songs where you go really deep and really detailed with people on what they want their song to be about. But again, I didn't know if it was actually going to work, if I was going to be able to do it. So then, so obviously you don't want to start putting a big price on it and charging people for something what might not work. Yeah. But then, we got the funding to start it. And then it was May 2017 was when I first started sessions. And I've been so nervous going into the hospice. And I just spoke to the day hospice patients. The hospices, they'll have a day hospice unit, which is people who are just come for the day. So they're generally earlier stages of a terminal diagnosis, so well enough to look after themselves during the week, So I spoke to a group of them and told them what I was doing and things like that. And I think there was two people that were like, yeah, that sounds great, I'd love to do that. And then I came in on it, so I started with them, and then I came in on other days. And at first it was just like, it just kind of, at first it took off, and I was doing loads of songs at once, and it was just magic. It was, and then it's just kind of growing from there, really. It's so yeah. First it was day hospice patients, so it tends to be people who are a bit earlier with a diagnosis, and I'd work with them. And some of them would write a song in 1 or 2 sessions. Some I'd come back week after week for.
Wow. So do you have questions you ask to get information? What sort of things would you ask?
I've developed that over time. So at first it was just completely going in and winging it.
Talk to me.
Let's just have a chat and see what we do. And then like literally a month or 2 ago, since the lockdown stuff, where I've been kind of developing the virtual way of doing it, it's made me go over what would a normal session be like, and what of that can I put into paper format or into questions so people can do it remotely. So yeah, it was just kind of winging it at the start. But a lot of it, one of the things that I ask a lot is, I say, when your song's finished, right, and we've got it done, who do you imagine listening to it? And then what do you want them to take away from it? And that feels like a nice place to work back from. So if someone might say they want everyone to hear it, they want, and they want everyone to, think about their life differently or something like that. Some people might say, I just want my wife to hear it and to know how much I appreciate, how she's looked after me and things like that. So going from there, and it's like, right, so how are we going to achieve that? Working backwards is quite a nice way of doing it.
There must be a lot of pressure, because if you write a song for you and you put it out and it goes down well, you wrote that for you. This is something you've been through. This is, your feelings. This is about a relationship that ended or a relationship that started or a memory. It's about your nana. It's about whatever. But then you're writing something, trying to represent somebody else's life or thoughts, or is there a lot more pressure doing that than just writing your own music?
It's an interesting thing, and like at the start, there definitely was. At the start, I definitely felt a lot of pressure about it. But also, like, I think over time, it takes out some of the pressure in a way, because like the way I think about it is, with any creative thing, there's two elements to it. There's the inspiration and there's the craft. So like, with the Swan Song project, I'm just craftsman. I don't have to do the inspiration. The inspiration is the person, which is one of the harder things, because especially when you've been doing something for a while, you learn your craft, so you know how to shape things. So with this, in some ways, it's like, as long as I can help them, and like, I mean, I'm so relaxed with it that there's no pressure with anyone. So like, if they want to take as long as they want, we'll take as long as they want. And if I want to make them as happy with it as possible, so like we can go over it in small detail and things like that. And then, I guess because the content of the song, like what it's about and stuff like that, that doesn't have to matter to me. I mean, it does in a way, but like, it's if they're happy with what it's saying and it's saying what they want to say, that's what's important. So for me, like, it doesn't have to make sense. I always say this, it doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. You can write a song, whatever. And like, people put in a lot of like in jokes and things like that, which I really like, is say, like, kind of, there'll be a line in it which won't make sense to the average listener, but to their wife or their kids, will be like, oh, that's the time this happened.
Yeah.
And I always think lines like that, because they're packed with so much more than the line itself. So things like that are always really nice. But then because of that, like, you don't feel that pressure about your own ideas, because as long as the other person's happy about the ideas that are in the song and the content, then, and you're just making the musical suggestions, I guess, or the structural things of the way you might phrase it and stuff like that. So it's a different element, but then it's also, I think it's definitely affected my own writing, because I've done so much of that, where you kind of writing songs, trying to keep yourself out of it, to then remember my own, what are my songs like when I put myself into it? What do I want to write myself? So that's an interesting kind of journey with it.
It sounds like an amazing project. When I first heard about it, I was like, I've got friends who write poetry for weddings and things like that. And I feel like there's a lot of pressure there to make that right. And when I heard about this, my first thing was, oh my God, that must be so stressful. And then when we've met, you just so laid back and you're like, yeah, it's cool, it's cool.
I mean, sometimes you get like, I guess it's, if some songs, where the person's been right near the end, and there's been a bit of like there was one guy who we were working on his song for quite a while, and I had to go away for a few days. I was going down to, and it, like, I try and flex it for, if someone's, early stages, coming once a week, that's fine, we'll do once a week. If someone's in the hospice and like they're, right near the end, then sometimes I might come a couple of times a week and we'll try and get it, I'll try and make sure we can get it done. But I've been working with this guy for a while, and he was in the hospice. He'd been in the hospice for a long time, and I was going down to London for a few days for something. So I was finishing the session with him. I was like, all right, I'll be away for a couple of days, but I'll come see you, Friday if I want to get back. And he was like, you could see he was kind of, just thinking about something. And then just before I went, he went, Ben, he said, if I cark it before you get back, and that was the phrase he used, cark it. He said, will you finish the song for me? And I was like, oof, that was one where it hit me a bit. Because the idea of doing that, of having to finish someone's song without them, would feel a lot of pressure on it. I remember that was one of them things where there's been a lot of learning curves of how to have these conversations and how it feels to talk to people that close to.
But more importantly, was he still there on Friday when
he was? Yeah.
Oh.
So that's I kind of said it to him. I was like,
brilliant.
I don't know if he was, maybe he just had a bad feeling that day, something like that. But I was like, oh, you'll be all right. Yeah, I'll see you. You'll be on Friday. But I said, of course I will if needed. But yeah, then he was there, and we finished his song a few days before he passed in the end.
So what are people's attitudes towards end of life? Like, have you been surprised about the way people, or has everyone been completely different?
Yeah, it's very different. So some people don't acknowledge that they're where they are and they're that close. So apparently that conversation with that guy that I was talking about, apparently that was the first time he'd spoken to any of the staff, anyone, some proper staff there, but had acknowledged that he knew he was that close to the end. And it just came out that way. So some people are like that, they're just, some people are very open about it and joke about it and things like that. And I think I forget that not everyone talks about death that much and is that kind of close to it. So like, and especially like say doing the Swan Song Project podcast, sometimes I think I forget that with guests that they might be a bit like uncomfortable talking about death in that way. But yes, I mean, it's just everyone's just completely different. Some people are.
Do you think for him? So if you're somewhere where you know this is where your life's going to end, and it's just each day, but now he's got something that he's wants to finish. He's now got a target, and that's what's made him think, I want to get this finished before. That might be the reason why he's chose to speak about it there. So you've given him that opportunity to be able to sort of express that feeling without.
Yeah, yeah. It's fascinating. Like for me, the songwriting process, and it's so like people can use it in whatever way they want. You know, I don't enforce anything with like the song's got to be about, you know, you're coming to the end of your life or whatever. It's like if you want to write a song about something completely silly, we can do that. So it's kind of an open invitation for them. And sometimes people will write a more, you know, like a surface level song. Sometimes people will delve really deep and write something really personal, really powerful, moving. It's like, and either way is fine, whatever you want to get out of it. But I think it definitely, like, a lot of people have used it in that way. It's kind of helped them reflect on where they are and their life. And a lot of people, you know, it's like they can communicate things in a song what would be hard to say face to face. So there's a lot of that of like, you know, I really want to tell my wife or my kids how much I appreciate them. But like sitting down and just saying, look, right, yeah, I love you and all this stuff, it can be really difficult. And also people worry that then it feels final if they have one of those conversations. I always remember, do you know Adler O'Hanlon, the Irish comedian who's Dougal and Father Ted?
Yeah.
On one of his stand-up shows, he was talking about, he said, you know, like being Irish as well and not being very expressive with relatives. And he was saying, there's a time my dad was really ill and he was in the hospital and I thought he might die. And I thought, like, you know, I should go in and tell him that I love him. That's what I should do in case he dies. And you know, he said, but then I worried, like, I thought, well, if I go and tell him and then he doesn't die, then we're going to have to live with that and it's going to be awkward forever. So I didn't tell him. It's like, it's kind of brilliant. That's a funny way of putting it, but it's kind of like having those conversations sometimes feels like a finality, I think, and people worry about doing them. Whereas if you're doing it in a song, you can just, you know, you can put whatever you want in it, and then like you don't even have to give it to them straight away. Like, I don't think I've had any like that. There's been a few conversations about that where someone's written a song and been like, I might not tell them that I've done it and just leave it for them, and then they'll find it, you know, when I'm gone.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but then it's always nice. So there was one particular where we had that was a big conversation and he'd kept it private, didn't tell his family that he was doing it until it was finished. But then it's kind of nice that when they do give it to them, because then it's like, then you can have those conversations. And a lot of time people say then it's opened up things that they might not have talked about otherwise.
Yeah. So do you speak to the families? Have you spoke to any of the families? Yeah,
again, it varies. So like, it varies so much. Some people I'll see for a couple of months. And I'll get to know the family. If someone's in the hospice for a long time and I'm working with them, I'll go and see them. Then obviously their family will come in and visit as well. So I get to know the families quite well sometimes. Sometimes you'll work with someone at the start and you get a song done, then you'll keep seeing them as they kind of, you know, keep coming back to the hospice. And sometimes I've worked with someone in the day hospice and then a year later they've come into the hospice and been on the ward, you know, when it's like near it. And that's been the hardest part in some ways, is when you see someone deteriorate.
Yeah.
You know, like you kind of, you know, if you go into these relationships knowing the situation, but when you see someone who, like, you work with them and they're full of life and things like that, and then you see them, like, next time you see them they've deteriorated a lot, that's quite difficult.
And was that part of this project discussed before you started? Is this things that any of your friends thought ahead about, or did you think this could be an issue?
Yeah, I didn't think that was that specific thing, but I knew the emotional side of it was going to be a potential challenge. And but I was just like, I'll figure it out as I go, won't I?
and is that side to it tough? Like, are you? So I always say that I'm sort of desensitized to quite a lot of things because I meet people who've been in horrendous situations, and we're really good at thinking that we're the only people who've been through something. So when someone tells me something, and I'm just like, oh wow, I bet that was bad, that I don't give them the usual, oh my gosh, and it's I'm just more used to hearing absolute horror stories now. So does it get easier?
Definitely gets easier. And I think, like what you've mentioned there, a lot of time in the hospices, people, and like conversations with family members, they really appreciate when I have a conversation where the person's not like, oh my god, that's horrendous, and because like a lot of time people feel quite isolated because they can't talk to their usual friends about it because people get so uncomfortable. So having a conversation with someone who can just have that conversation with you and not be, dramatic about it, and it means a lot to a lot of people. And I think I've definitely desensitized to some extent, but I think you can't do it completely, because part of me is like, I can't not make a connection with the person. I can't, because I need to do that to do the song. Otherwise, the song is not going to work if I don't feel like I get to know the person a little bit. So we do make a kind of bond with it, and I always think like you can intellectualize it as much as you want and be like, yeah, I knew this person was ill when I met them. I knew they didn't have long left, and I always think of it like, at least I've done something. I've added something nice to the end of their life that, this was going to happen anyway. They were going to pass. And we had a good time together, even if it's just one session that we really enjoyed, played some music together. If it's, 10 or 12 sessions or whatever, it's, added something nice to it. But then I think the emotion element still hits you. So that's what's happened to me a lot. Someone that I've known it's coming, but then when it's happened, you're still like, oh, and it still kind of gets you. And at first, I was being a bit knucklehead about it, and I was being like, just got to crack on, got to just, carry on with stuff. And then I've kind of got a lot better at being kind of open and being more kind to myself about it, and like just being aware if I've worked with someone closely in the past, like, I might not feel great tomorrow. I might feel more tired than usual. I might, just need to take a bit of time off. And that's all right. And I get more support nowadays as well. So I have regular supervision with one of the chaplains at the hospice and things like that to try and just debrief a bit of it. And again, it's having someone who's in that, who's can have those conversations with you. I mean, I'm lucky as well. Like my girlfriend works at the hospice, so she's kind of used to having these kind of conversations as well. Yeah. But yeah, it's tough, and I think there's always going to be that element to it, and it's kind of, and I definitely I burnt myself out as well. So one of the things that, as we're kind of trying to expand and bring more people in, that's the thing I'm most cautious about. I know lots of songwriters who are great songwriters who will be able to do this work really well, but it's not wanting to put people in that situation where, so I completely burnt myself out that first year, 18 months. I was just like, did so many songs and had so much of that element of the grief to it that I was just kind of flat. And then I got so I kind of started coming down with really bad depressive episodes, which I don't know if was a cause from this, if it was kind of burnt myself out and then or what, but I definitely was doing too much and not looking after myself enough with it. So it's something that when we bring new people in, I'm very keen to ensure they're supported properly. And I think doing it in a way where people only have X amount of sessions at a time, because there was times I was doing 5 or 6 a week with people, week on week, and these are all different people, different stages of illness. And there was one week where 3 people that I'd worked really closely with all went in the same week. And I remember it was just one of those weeks where you get a call and be like, so-and-so's just died. And it's like, oh, no. So it's just kind of, it's part of the trade. It's going to be tough.
It's obviously tough what you've been through, but it's given you the opportunity to put things in place now.
Yeah.
And by allowing other people in, it gives you time to sort of step back, which is what we spoke about before. I never thought of that side of it. I'm thinking I'd have too much control issues to be able to just say, yeah, you go do that. But there is that side to it where you appreciate and you'll understand what they're about to go through. I can't even imagine. I've got a dog that we got when just before she turned 9, and she's 14 and a half. And she goes and stays at my sister's sometimes, and I'm always just like, what if they ring and say she's poorly? And I'm sort of dreading. Yeah. That's one of my biggest fears at the moment, is that day, that phone call, however it is that we find out about that. But she still runs around like a pup. So in my head, it's like, oh, well, it's not going to happen because, and it's just that sort of, that grief, that loss. It's difficult to deal with.
And the flip side of it is what I think I have got from this is knowing that you're going to lose things. There's one of these really smart philosophers or something like that who's got a quote of this, which I'm not going to be able to tell. I'm going to say it in a much less articulate way, but about the being aware of the end makes you appreciate the present a lot more. So things like knowing that things aren't going to last forever can make you think, actually, so really enjoying that time when you've got the dog running around and those memories and stuff. It's.
Have you ever not finished one?
I don't think so. I don't think we've not finished one that we've really got into. We've had some where people have been like, we've had like an initial kind of chat about it, and we've kind of bounced some ideas around. But I don't think we've ever had one where we've started it, where we've actually got into the song, and then so sometimes people have been like, thought about it and like, actually, I don't think I'm going to do this now, or they've had a turn and not been able to. But I don't think we've had one where we've got into the song where the song's been started properly.
Right.
And we've not finished it. I don't think.
And what was the competition that you won?
Which competition?
When you met Chris Evans.
So that was I was nominated for the Sun have a Who Cares Wins Awards.
That's the one, yeah. I was reading it last night.
Yeah. So it's like healthcare awards, and they do it every year. And I was nominated for the Unsung Hero Award of that last year. And so then I got through to the final three. So we were invited down to London for this big award ceremony like that. It's the weirdest night. It was so yeah, they paid for us to come down and everything like that, and put on a suit and everything, and went to this. So it was at the Sun HQ, this big news building in the middle of London, top floor of this fancy building,
wow.
Amazing views all over London and stuff like that. We got there, there's you're in this place and you're just like, oh, am I here? What's
yeah, I've been there a few times.
yeah. And we were looking at the guest list, and like all these big names on it. Boris Johnson was presenting the last award.
Wow.
That was weird. Chris Evans, Lorraine Kelly was the host. Lots of, so it was a very surreal night, and we went for the awards, and I didn't get the award, and like one of the things where like award ceremonies can be quite long, so go through all the nominees and stuff like that for each category. It's quite a lot of categories, and like I knew from the start that I hadn't won it because like the first category, it's like what was it? Yeah, and the winner is, and then it had a video about the winner, and I was like, well, they didn't make a video about me, so I've definitely not won the award. So that's at the start. I was like, that's all right, we still come down, had a nice night and everything like that.
So what did the winner win? Do you know?
I think it's just the award. I don't think it was like a prize with it. I think it's just
the recognition, but I mean top three anyway. Yeah.
And then so there was lots of press coverage around it and things like that, and it was great. To me, it was really nice awards. You heard lots of really nice stories. They were all like, it was like best nurse and best doctor and best midwife, and so it was all these like amazing stories of genuine real people, and they were all there, and people were very excited about it all. So it was a really nice night, and a free bar with Brewdog, which is like one of my favourite beers. So when you get a free bar, and sometimes it's like not your favourite drink. But I got there, it's like Brewdog. Oh yes.
So if anyone from Brewdog's watching, Ben does a podcast, and I'm sure he'll leave a bottle in the corner.
Yeah, the quality of my conversations might deteriorate if Brewdog became my sponsor. Just get a bit zunzers. So I knew I wasn't going to win. But then after the awards, I was just like, I'm going to go and talk to people. I had a few Brewdogs. I had that kind of confidence of like, I'm going to go and I just actually come out of. I was on this Red Bull, ran something called the Amapico Academy last year, which was an academy for social entrepreneurs, and there was 15 of us on it. 15 of us from the UK and 2 guys from Chile that flew over for it, and it was just this like ridiculous experience. Yeah, they had us all in Bradford, and it was just like an 8-day academy of like these amazing, inspiring speakers and all these different workshops and stuff like that. So I'd come out of that like full of confidence and really buzzing, and like this kind of like, I can go and talk to Chris Evans, no bother. So I mean, if it happened any other time, I might not have had the guts to go and do it.
Yeah.
But just coming out of that, it was literally like I came back from the academy on the Sunday. This was the Tuesday afterwards. So then I was just like, I'm going to go and talk to everyone. So I was just kind of milling about, and I went up to Chris. I said, hi, Chris. And he's like, oh, Ben, I love what you do. You got to come on the show in the morning. Can you come on the show? And I was like, all right, yeah. And it was lucky that we were staying over. Originally, like we thought we might just go down and then come back and get a late train back.
So if you were heading back that night and Chris Evans says to you, will you come on the show? Do you then book a hotel room?
Don't know, probably. If we could have, we could have afforded it. Probably would have done. But so I was like, yeah, sounds good. And this was like maybe 10, 11 at night, several Brewdogs in. And I was like, and he shows up, it's breakfast show, and so, and then he was like, yeah, oh, great stuff, yeah, come with me. And so he kind of took me off down this hallway. I was following him along, and he gets to this office, this glass office, and he's banging, there's people in it. He's banging on the window, and there's someone looks around. And he's like, and she comes out, and he's like, right, this is Ben. I want Ben on the show in the morning. Can you sort that out? And she was like, yeah, cool. And he's like, all right, great stuff, pals. See you in the morning. And I was just like, cool. And in my head, and then she was like, he does this all the time. We have a schedule of like, these are the guests. And he's like, I want this person on. Let's put this person on. then I was like, cool, yeah. So then she kind of gave me the details. Like, yeah, come back at 8 a.m. or whatever it was. And yeah, your name will be on the desk.
So obviously, responsible Ben goes straight back to the hotel, straight to bed, good night's sleep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
of course,
yeah.
And, so that was just really surreal. And then I was kind of like, in my head, I was like, this isn't really going to happen this year. So I went back and I was just telling Emily and everyone about it and stuff like that. And then we had a few more drinks, a few more conversations and stuff like that. And then went back to the hotel. And like, I mean, I'm a bad sleeper anyway. I always have problems sleeping. So then that night I was like, oh, I hope I can get some sleep tonight. I don't know if I'm going to be able to shut down with this, but I kind of did some writing and I just kind of did a few stretches and stuff like that. I was like, so I managed to get some sleep. Got up the next morning and I was kind of like, I thought I'm going to get there, and they were like, "What? Get out!"
Yeah,
like your name's not going to be on the door. But I got there, and they were like, "Yeah, cool." Just I had to go through all the security stuff. And Adam Kay was there. Yeah, Adam Kay, the author, who wrote "This Is Going to Hurt," who used to be a doctor.
Oh, right. Okay.
So he was at the awards as well. So I met him there, and he was on Chris's show that morning. So he was kind of coming in with us and chatting with him. Then we got upstairs to where Chris's studio was, and the other kind of part said, "Oh, you just sit down here. Come and get you in a minute." And Matt Hancock was there, who's the health secretary. I didn't know this at the time. He was, and so he'd been at the awards as well. He was presenting one of the awards, but he was there, and there was some files on these sofas, and there's him and like some of his friends or whatever sat with him, and there was some files on this other like seat here, and so we were just stood there, and he came and he's like, "Hello," I shook hands and stuff like that, and I was like, I don't know who this guy is, but I'm assuming he's someone famous who's going to be on the show with us. And there's these files on the chair, and I was like, I want to sit down. So I kind of picked up the files and put them on the table. It was like, oh, so they're highly confidential, something like that. And I was, all right. But then we sat down, and then someone went to get some drinks. But then Chris came out of the studio. He was like, I'll come in together. I'll come in. All right, so I kind of wandered in, and I was there. So first he was talking to Matt Hancock, and I was literally sat there like, so I don't know if my microphone was on or not, but I was just sat there quietly. It was me, Adam Kay, and Matt Hancock. And as I was talking, I was like, I bet he's the health secretary. That's probably what he does based on this conversation. Then they talked for a bit, then he left. Then he started talking to Adam Kay, which was cool. And then he brought me into the conversation. So it's me, Chris, and Adam talking about it, asking me questions about the project and stuff like that. And then he mentioned, he was, like, obviously Chris is someone who has loads of ideas. So he was like, oh, you could do this and you could do this. And he's got all these really good ideas. And I was like, yeah, these are, you're saying that we should do like, get some celebrities to record some of the songs and do all this kind of stuff. And he was like, you should come to Carfest and play at Carfest. We'll have a Swan Song section. Yeah, you can do some songs from it and all this kind of stuff and all these great ideas. And I said something like, because I was kind of, again, it happens a lot. You get lots of good ideas, but when you're a one-person operation, it's like, I just don't have the time to. I'd love to do all this stuff. So I said something like that. I said, this is all great. We are a very small organisation. I said, we've got a little bit of funding at the minute from the lottery. And he was like, how much did they give you? I said, they gave us 10 grand, a few months ago. He was like, how about we give you 25? I was just like, and actually no, he'd mentioned off air that he still had some money from Carfest. So Carfest is this big festival that he organises, that he was still choosing charities for. So then in my head I was like, I wonder if he'll give some of Swan Song. But then just live on air, I was like, well, but we'll give you 25 grand, just like that. And I was just like, lots of my friends said, like, you handled it really well. Lots of people like thought that I knew that was going to happen, which I didn't. So there's a clip of it which they shared online and stuff like that but I was just like, Jesus. It was just a surreal experience. And then I came out.
So you didn't when they want 25 grand would be all right, but I mean 50 grand would be.
I've never been much of a haggler negotiator. I was just like, it was just surreal. And then I came out, and Emily, my girlfriend, had been sat in the outside bit watching it on the screen, and she'd crying her eyes out watching it, stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
And we went back to my phone, and my phone was just blowing up. And even before I'd got on air and we're coming into the building, and my phone started going with different emails and stuff like that from people saying, just heard Chris Evans mention. So he must have when I'd got to the desk and said
coming
I was
up
here.
Soon.
Yeah, he must have said, right, Ben's here now, so we're going to have this guest on. So immediately my phone was just, and then that day was just ridiculous, and it was just felt so surreal. So we came out, and then we're just trying to go back. So the phone was just untouchable. I just had to be leave that alone for now. And we walked around there's a market near there, which is nice food and stuff like that. And it was just the weirdest day. But yeah, amazing. And then he brought us back down a few weeks afterwards, maybe a month or two afterwards, when they had a big show where So we'd allocated all the money from Carfest, and it raises like 3 million a year or something like that. They give it all to charities. So they invited us down for this event where they had like an indoor festival in the same part of the building, all sorts of stuff going on. And they had me on the air again, where they gave me the big check, which I've still got in the studio.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just an amazing experience, really.
So do you think that might be a longer term relationship?
I hope so, yeah. I mean, you mentioned that at the time, because obviously Carfest had been postponed this year. But hopefully we'll become a regular charity and be a part of that.
Because in the article it said something about changing it to Carefest.
Yeah.
You mentioned that, so he's obviously looking at, I think people like yourself and being at that awards has sort of inspired him to see that he could make a huge difference. What is Carfest? I know he's big on his cars, but do they sell stuff, or is it?
I don't think they sell stuff. I think they have different stages with different bands and stuff on like that. But then I think they have like lots of fancy cars on show, and they have lots of different. So I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I was hoping to go this year, but obviously, COVID happened, the Rona came. But yeah, so I think it's just a big festival. They have all sorts of different things going on, but a big car theme to it as well.
Right.
But yeah, it was just a bonkers experience. And then that funding, we were at a stage as well where our previous funding was kind of coming to an end, and it was that, as we were talking about before, when you run one of these things, you're always kind of in that thing of like, well, I'm going to have to pause some of the actual works. I need to try and get some more funding to keep it going. We were just getting to that stage where I was getting really worried about it. I'd been like, I'm going to have to start putting in some more funding bids and find the time to do that. And then that gave us, a lot of security, and and also with what happened this year, that's what's allowed us to survive the pandemic, really. Because if we hadn't had that, it would have been a lot more difficult. A lot more worrying of what we would have done during this time. Right.
So, what's the plan now? Has that funding allowed you to do more stuff or run the same stuff for longer? What did you decide to do?
So we were kind of like stabilised. So I wasn't actually employed by Swan Song. I was self-employed, and I do freelance work for the Swan Song project. But this has allowed us to create a proper job for me. So I'm employed. I'm the creative director now.
Wow.
It just feels so weird to have a title like that. And we created another job as well. We were going to hire a business manager who was going to be invaluable. And we did the recruitment process and everything like that just before the lockdown. And then lockdown hit, and that's kind of thrown all those plans up in the air a bit. So we're hoping to revisit that again soon. We've just actually got some funding yesterday. I found out from Leeds Community Foundation that we've got some money from their resilience fund.
Amazing.
So so we're at this real stage of expansion now. And what we did at the start of lockdown, it was very much like, what we're going to do. And obviously not being able to go to hospices and see people. And at first I was like, I don't think I can do this virtually. I think these sessions are too emotionally charged and too delicate to do over Zoom. So I just thought, like, I'm not going to do sessions for quite a while. But then over time, as it's kind of been like, it's not, first it's kind of like, hopefully this is just a month or two, then we're back to normal and everything we just forget about this whole thing. But as we've kind of gone over this time, it's been more like you've got to adapt on a longer term basis. And I think just because I was doing so much more stuff on Zoom, I got like a bit more familiar with it, and felt more comfortable having the conversation. And you learn there's certain things you've got to do on the way you handle a conversation virtually is slightly different than you would do in person to make it work. So then I was like, you know what, maybe I can do virtual sessions. And I think it was someone actually contacted us and just said, do you think you could, I've heard about your charity, are you doing anything virtual? Do you think could you do a song with us that way? So I was like, yeah, let's give it a go. And so I kind of said to the person, like, I've not done this before, but I'm willing to, I think we can do it. I think we can work it out. And then it made me think about the process a lot more. So what I've got now is I've got a document that I send out if someone's interested. I'll send them this thing which has a lot of these questions on it, and then so they can think about that in their own time, send it back to me, then I'll have a look at it, and then we'll have a meeting where it's like, okay, so some of the ideas that put down here, what I thought you might want to do with these is you could maybe do a verse about this and have a verse about this, and so I can then offer some suggestions and we go from there. So it's a bit different than it is in person, but it works. So then I did that one. I did a few other like trial ones. So I contacted some of the hospices and stuff that I knew and was like, I'm thinking of trialing a few of these before I make it public, just see if it works. Did a few, all seemed to have gone well. So then we're like, let's just do it. Let's kind of roll it out. And so now we've started advertising it. And it also means, before we were limited by where I could go time-wise. Yeah. And just being me was like, so especially like Chris Evans Day, like just loads of hospices all across the country were contacting me and care homes and stuff saying, can you come and do some songs with some of our patients? and I'd love to be able to do it all, but you just can't. But now it's like we can work with a lot more people, and we've kind of built this way of bringing in new songwriters. So I was saying to you briefly before we started, like it's a bit safer because it kind of takes out a bit of that emotional element that we were talking about, because you're not bringing people straight into the hospice. So what I'm doing now is I'll have the consultation with the new songwriter. We'll kind of go over their ideas, start to build the song into some kind of shape. And then what I might do is I might refer it to another musician. So we'll have a conversation about what kind of music. And this is what's really cool about it as well. So like before, it was like I do my best to make it sound how they want it to sound, but obviously I'm limited in my musical ability. But so then if someone says, if someone wants their song to be a jazz song, like then I can say, cool, right, what jazz musicians do I know? I know these guys. What do you think of these? Do you want to listen to some of these? See one you like? I'll ask them if they'll help us with it, rather than me using my one jazz chord as the song. So then it's like you can kind of really tailor the songs a lot more. So that's really nice. So then now we have a chat about music, and then I can. So I've got like a few people that I know already, and a few other people that I think like if I came to them with a song, I think they'd be up for helping with it. And then I try and support as much as possible in between. So I act as the go-between of like I'll do the ideas and stuff, and then I'll refer it to this person, and then they can come back with like, I thought you could maybe do this, sounds like this. Then we'll go back to the other person and say, what do you think of this? Do you like the sound of that? Oh, I'd like to change this. Can we change that? And we just go back and forth like that until we get a song finished, which is just, I'm really excited about doing more of it, and the range of music we'll be able to get out of it now.
Yeah.
And it just feels great as well. Obviously, a lot of musicians have really struggled during this time, having to do gigs and stuff like that. So having a way of creating some work for musicians as well, it's just.
Do you think if you are doing them online, you could potentially expand up and down the UK?
Yeah, definitely.
Because when you were saying that, I was just thinking if you got a big funding bid, you could employ local artists in the areas of there, because I think the risk is somebody else is gonna hear what you're doing and say, oh well, he's not doing it in London, so I might start the duck song, or just a slight sort of sidestep from what you're doing, and because there's nobody else doing it, I think it's an amazing project. And I think now you have a basis of, I know the process, I know how it works, and we've also got this possibility of an online way of doing it. That should be right. We need to think like, yeah, we've got funding for another year or however long it's for, but what happens in 3 years?
Yeah.
And especially if you've got people reaching out to you, because after funding, I think advertising is one of the hardest things, and it's you run the risk. And I'm saying this because it's happened to me. So when we first started out, we had some ideas where we were going to be working in a prison, and the lottery were going to fund it, and it was a lot of money. It was a 2-year project, and it was employing prisoners when they're released. But we work with them inside the prison before they're released, and then they come and work with us. We get them all the education they need to be employable at the end of the 2 years. So they come out, work with us, paid, move on to a role, and then the next people come out, and they then mentor the next people coming out. And then a big company heard about what we were doing, and we had to go into the prisons and say, would you be willing to let us do this? And they said, yeah, it sounds amazing. And then a couple of weeks later, of no response from the prison, the lottery saying we need something from them to say, and they just came back and said, oh, we've actually got our own internal program.
Yeah.
And what they've done is just took what we'd told them and created their own thing. And because they're a massive organisation, it's a lot easier for them to be able to fund it.
Yeah.
And I just wish that we'd have had a bit more ambition early on, because we've done well. It's been a few years, and it has been tough. But the stuff I'm doing now, we could easily have been doing back then. And especially with you expanding your team, if that's releasing some of your time, I think it'd be a shame if you didn't at least look into how do it, because it's not just you delivering that work. It's amazing that local people are being able to receive this amazing thing, but there's loads more people across the country that would absolutely love it.
But my dream with it when I kind of started it was, I thought like, I want this to just be a part of the culture, that like it's kind of, it's expected that people get old, they write their song and they leave it, and the family have that song and they can play it for years to come. So that's been kind of my mission with it, of like, I want to make it as just, and like also like, so I've thought about that before. Like, I'm kind of surprised there's not been more, other things doing the same thing started, that I've heard about anyway. There might be that I've just not heard about. But then I also, part of me is like, I want people to do these songs, and if they're doing it without me, that's still great. I'm still happy that that's happening. I mean, obviously, like I'd like the Swan Song project to do well and be the thing that
the thing that overlooks all the little ones that happen.
Yeah, and kind of supports it. But I'm kind of like, so we're building a new website at the minute, and on there the plans to have some resources. So the idea that somebody might like the idea of doing a song, and people like, if someone's musical themselves or they've got a musician in the family, they might be just like, oh, should we write a song before?
Yeah.
I just want people to do it. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I would like Swan Song to be able to offer as much of it as possible. And this has definitely that's been one of the difficult things for a while, has been, how do we scale it? Because it was all these, I was trying to unpack everything, what I was doing and how it worked, and then it's just hard to know what you need to tell someone when you're doing this thing of like. So that's what I guess, and at the start of lockdown, before we started the virtual, that was what I was doing a lot of as well. I was trying to unpack what things would I need to tell someone. How do you support someone properly for it? But this way, the virtual way, feels like a much easier to scale model, and it's definitely given me. I've refined it a lot more, so I feel like I'm in a much better place for. And it's like you can have like a graduation program for people at first, can do a song where they don't necessarily have to have any contact with the participant, but they get to know it a little bit, and then you can bring them in where they'll have a chat with me and them there, and they can observe how it works and stuff like that. So then gradually they get more experience, and then eventually you get them where they can do the consultations. So we'll have a team of people who are like just musicians who can just help with recording, ones who can help with the whole writing process, ones who can help with the whole facilitation process, and it just feels like a much more scalable model.
Do you think you'll ever get to a point where you would, like, let's say this happens and it upscales, you then just sort of travel around and sort of mentor, or would you miss the actual being there and hearing the stories and writing the songs?
Yeah, I think that's a very common risk, I think, with entrepreneurs. And like, when you start something, you start it for a passion that you love doing it, and then you can quickly become a manager and not doing what you started it for. So I'm very aware of that, and like, I definitely know, if I have a while where I don't do any sessions, I get really, like, I miss it, and I kind of forget why. And you get frustrated doing fund applications of policies and all that stuff, and you're like, why am I doing this? This is boring. If you do it well, then you do a session, you're like, that's why I do it. And then it's like, it reminds you of this is what, and then like, when you finish a song with someone and you're really happy with it and stuff like that, then you can be like, right, now I don't mind doing 6 days of boring work, because that's happened and that's worth the boring work. So yeah, I'm very aware of that. I want to keep a solid foot in the actual work of it.
I mean, it's not uncommon for the person who starts an organisation to continue delivering and then just employ people, not to be above them, but to sort of run the boring, because I hate all that stuff.
Yeah.
The finances, the receipts, the spreadsheets, all that sort of stuff.
I think I'm allergic to Excel. Like, I just in my head, I know what numbers are. I know how numbers work. I was quite good at adding stuff together and stuff at school. But like, I open Excel to do some counts, and like, I know what I need to do. I've got to put these numbers in here, and I just look at it, and it's like my brain's going to explode. I just.
You see, I'm quite lucky that one of my jobs was basically an Excel spreadsheet, and it was just the same sheet every week with just different information on. So I feel quite lucky that I've had that experience. But for the first time in 4 years, the account is £4.44 out, and I have no clue where it is. I've spent many hours. I even had the idea, what I'll do is I'll put £4.44 in, then it'll balance. But because I've put that money in, I have to account for it on the sheet.
Yeah.
So all I did was added it, but then it's still £4.44 out, and it frustrates me because there's nothing to that amount which makes sense on where it's gone, and that's one of my pet peeves. So when we come to the end of year, I'll just declare it £4.44 out and then start fresh. Yeah. All I'm thinking is just come on November, we can, because every time I go on, it's that little red. It just says £4.44 in red. And it's like, I'm just not going to look at it. I'm going to pretend it's not there. But these are the sort of, they're not really downsides, but they're the things that you need to do to be able to do the fun stuff. Like you say, you do one day of good stuff and then you don't mind doing the rubbish stuff after. It's just really time consuming, and I'm sure you'd rather do 5 days of the fun stuff.
Yeah, and it's the realities of this stuff, and it's like you can see why a lot of people, like, lots of good ideas would go something. There's a word I'm trying to think of what it is, but like unmaterialized in some way that people have a great idea and be like, actually, like, I'm gonna have to do that. I'm gonna have to do all this boring stuff to enable it. And I guess I've come to accept it a lot more of like, this is just part of the job and trying to get better at. I'm definitely not better than I used to be at. I used to be a master procrastinator. For like, if I've had a list of jobs to do for the week and like some of them were boring, I'd find every excuse possible to not have to do them. Like, have you seen Black Books, the TV series?
No.
Oh, it's hilarious. Dylan Moran, the Irish comedian. There's an episode of that where he's got to do his tax return. And he's just doing that. He's just making he pairs all his socks and he has a massive pile of socks, and he turns all his receipts into a very smart casual jacket, stuff like that. I'd be that kind of guy. Like, right, what can I do now?
Yeah. When I had my office job, somebody said to me, if you've got a list of jobs, find the ones that you hate the most and do them first. Get them out of the way, and then the rest of the day is going to be a bit easier. Whereas otherwise, you're just going to be like, "Oh, I'll just do this," and then it needs to be done. Yeah. There's no way you can't not do it. So just get it out of the way to start with, and then the not more enjoyable. There's not really enjoyable about working in an office, but the things that you hate less will then be easier to do. And
the satisfaction you get from when you finish one of those jobs, when I've just done our accounts for this year, which I was like, oh, I can't. But I knew like once I'd done them, it's going to feel so good to be like, done that, don't have to do it. And the same thing. Eat that frog, they call it. Have you heard that expression? Eating I don't know why it's a frog, but
have you had any fines?
No.
I forgot to file at the end of year one and then got told off, and then year two I was late, and I was just like, I don't know any of this stuff. Like I got so much help to start, and then I usually find out I was supposed to do something from a letter saying you've got a £200 fine because you didn't do this. We're like, all right, well I know to do that now. It's a massive sort of learning curve.
Have you got many mentors with your thing? That's one thing I've been very lucky with Swan Song, is finding organisations that support third sector. It's an organisation in Bradford called Participate that have been amazing for supporting me. But that's the kind of stuff what they're really great. Like if you're doing that, you're gonna have to do these things. So again, I've been very lucky with, and like I get a lot of support from Red Bull as well. I've got mentors and stuff there that help out with guidance for that stuff. But otherwise, like you just don't know.
Red Bull, as in Red Bull.
Yeah, I say they ran this Amapico Academy, which they'd run. That was actually the last one they were doing. I think it was number 9. They'd done them all around the world, like Canada and Brazil and South Africa was where it started, I think. But yeah, then you get a group of, so that was last October we did that. But yeah, they select X amount of social entrepreneurs and support them through their projects. So
I think I might need to look into something like that, because I've got an amazing guy called Mick Amos who runs a company called HMP Not For Me, and he literally did everything I needed to start the company, but I've never been able to repay him. So the work we do is sort of a little bit different. So whenever there's an opportunity for me to say, oh, you need to get this guy in, I promote him as much as I can. But I don't want to be like, oh, how am I supposed to do this? And because I just feel like he's done too much for me already. But it would be good to have somebody. Who are they called? Participate's
the company in Bradford. They're brilliant. They've been invaluable for me really. So I remember when I first started it, I was like, I didn't know how you make something into an organisation. I never ran anything before. I'd always push and ask, when will you go and write some songs with those people? I'd be like, yep. So then the idea of like, how do you make that happen? And it gave me a lot more sympathy for some of the other charities and organisations I used to work for. So like one of my prisons projects that I was involved with years ago was again organised by another charity, and it was like there were so many delays and things like that. Like just waiting to get started and like getting frustrated when you kind of think you're going to do this work and then something else comes up. And it's frustrating, but then now as someone organising a project, you know how complicated all this stuff is, of what all this stuff goes in. So it's given me a lot more sympathy for other organisations that have done that. But yeah, I remember they sat down with me and said, like, well, these are your options. You could go for registered charity, you can go for CIO, you can go for CIC, and explaining all these are the things will happen. If you want to do that, you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do this and do that. And it's just, and again, the whole way through, they've been like that, of something like, what's happening here? I feel bad because I ring them all the time. What can you help me with this? But yeah, I mean, I'll give you some contacts as well. And there's an organisation called Unlimited, School for Social Entrepreneurs. They're really good as well. They do grants and different like workshops and things they invite you to. And yeah, there is a lot of really good support for third sector. And it's something what I always think, like, I wish more people knew about it, because like if I'd known this was an idea, I didn't think you could start your own charity. It's like charities are charities. They're just create things that are just happened.
Yeah.
And then the idea of like you can just have an idea and then make it into something and then get funding to do it, and it can become your actual job. Like it can happen, and it's like
it's an amazing feeling. Like being self-employed is brilliant, but when you have an idea that turns into a career, or you think, oh, this might be cool, and then you realize how many people you're helping and how much joy you get out of it. I spent a long time volunteering, and everyone says, oh, it's such a selfless act. I was like, it's not.
Yeah.
That feeling you get when you help somebody, that's what motivates you to keep doing it.
Definitely.
But yeah, I absolutely love it. So what's next?
Just the last thing on what we were talking about there, actually, was something this is really important as well. I think networking with other people who do similar things. That was nothing at the first, because it can be very isolating, I think, running your own thing. But knowing other people who are running charities or running CICs or other people in similar situations, it just makes such a difference. So it's definitely good to keep in touch with. That's when, like, from the Red Bull thing, like, the experience was amazing. But one of the best things about it is the relationships that we all have now. So like, we speak to each other regularly, the people that are on it, and it's all like, what are you gonna? I'm doing this at the minute, and this might help you, and I found out about this thing, and like.
What frustrates me about this industry is everyone sees it as a competition. You've got a pot of money that might fund 30 organisations, and there's 100 organisations going for it. So instead of thinking, oh, well, I know them and them and them, and maybe if we all came together, the support that we could give would be 4 times stronger than just one of us getting the pot. It's not. It's I'm going to make my funding bid better than everyone else's, so that I get the money and then I can deliver the work. And it's like survival instincts. But if we really take into account the people that we're trying to help, what's best for them, and it is to have multiple, either songwriters, like you said, if you can bring in different musicians who have classical, jazz, whatever, you're broadening that horizon for those people to make sure that fits perfectly. And that's, I think, what it needs to be. There's so many more ways to recover. There's so many more ways to avoid knife crime. There's so many, all these things. The more different approaches you can offer, the more likely you are to succeed.
Definitely, yeah.
But we sort of fight for it.
Yeah, and because like it's, there might be several organisations that are all dealing with the same issue, but they're all dealing with it in slightly different ways. And the amount of people who need the benefit from those things, there's enough for everyone generally, isn't there? Like, and it's, some people might benefit from this organisation, some people might benefit from this one, which is just slightly different. It's kind of just like you say, it's the more options to have people who need the support, the better. Yeah. Have you heard of Steel Warriors?
I haven't.
They're an organisation which one of my friends from Red Bull put me in touch with, but they turn knives into gym equipment. So they collect knives. I'm not sure exactly how they go about that, but the idea is to reduce knife crime and get people into fitness. So it's just one of them organisations I heard about. It's like, this is great. So I follow them on Instagram now, and so they make like outdoor gyms in parks and stuff like that out of recycled knives, and then they run fitness classes. But yeah, it'd be a good contact for you to have working in similar fields. But yeah, that's a
Steel Warriors.
Steel Warriors. Yeah, you just that's one of the things I love about this. I go to these different, like, get invited to different events. Well, again, being connected with these organisations like Participating Unlimited and Red Bull and stuff like that, where then they invite you to these things, and then you meet all these other people who are doing amazing projects, and you're like, that's great, what an idea.
But that would have started the same as yours. Someone would have been like, what could we do with, how can we get,
and nearly all of them have the same experience. They're like, I thought it'd be a good idea, and it's like, no, I can't do that, it can't be a good idea, and then something boosted them along, and yeah, it's amazing. There's a guy on the Red Bull thing who he's got a company called 10T, and he recycles tents into clothes. So he collects after festivals. People leave tents everywhere. Goes and collects all the leftover tents and recycles them into clothes.
So the material of the clothes is the tent.
Made out of the tent, yeah.
So that would be good for motorbikes. Like if you think about waterproofs, I've never had a pair of waterproofs that have kept me dry. They call them showerproof rather than waterproof. I might have to.
That'd be an idea for him, yeah.
I have to see if
that's... things like that. You just hear it, you're like, that's a great idea. That should be a big thing.
Yeah, and it's the whole, like they've started making. I can't remember what country it is, but they make roads out of plastic. So it's like road tiles, and you just think if you've got an excess of something, that's just going to get binned and landfilled. What could we do with it that's different? Yeah. And the way people's brains work, it's amazing.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
Because they just see opportunity, they don't see rubbish.
Yeah. And yeah, it's like just such creative solutions to problems.
Yeah.
That and ones like that I think are really good. Where it's like two problems solving, isn't it? It's creating good quality, fashion stuff that's ethically sourced and it's reducing waste. It's like it's ticking two good boxes. And it's just, I find it so interesting how people come up with these things. And there's a quote what I really like. Again, I can't remember who it's by, but it's instead of asking what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive. Because what the world needs is more people who've come alive.
Oh wow!
Which I just think that's what I'm thinking about this at the start. Of like, do people come up with like see a problem and think, well, how can I solve that? Which I think a lot of people do, but a lot of people have like their passion of what they really like, and then see a way of how that can benefit others.
Yeah.
And then that's what I think is just amazing. I love seeing people who are in that zone, who are like doing something that they're really passionate about and really love, and it's also benefiting other people. It's great.
I love seeing stuff like that, and you just think, what must their mind be like? Like, there's so many things. Like when you see new inventions, or you see old things reinvented, and you just think, what an amazing mind to be able to not just imagine that that's a thing, but then to actually create it and make it a thing.
Yeah.
But again, it's the Swan Song. It's in essence, it's a simple idea, but it's such an amazing. Like, there's a lot more to it. But just think, well, if someone's going to leave the earth, what would they want to tell people? What would their sort of message be? And it's such an amazing sort of project. Like I say, I don't know. When I found out about it, I was just properly blown away. Like I say, I only know people who write sort of spoken word stuff for events, for people where it's happening, like, birthdays or weddings and stuff like that. And I've never ever heard of anything where it's sort of, there's a girl who I've never met, but she's got a lot of mutual friends on Facebook. Don't want to get it wrong, but I think her name's Gemma. I'm not going to try and guess what her surname was. But she's struggled with cancer for a number of years. So she was a bodybuilder, her partner's a bodybuilder, and she passed, I think it was last week, and she'd pre-wrote a status on Facebook, and I'm guessing her partner posted it like on the day or the day after, and even just reading that post was sort of, it gets you. So to know that effect on me is what your song will have, and that's somebody who I don't know. And to imagine what that's like for the families to receive this, whether they know about it before or not, because I could say to somebody, I'm writing a song, but until they actually hear it, it's still going to be that first time, regardless when it is. And I can't even imagine what that means to the families. So, and the thing I love about it as well is when you talk about it, your face completely lights up. Like you can tell that it's something that you're really passionate about, and that, if you can do this for however many years, you're going to bring so much sort of peace to so many families.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, and it's like you were saying about the volunteering thing. It's like when people give me compliments about it, I'm like, yeah, I do get how it's a great thing to do, but like it's a great thing for me to do. Like it doesn't feel like I'm being selfless at all. It feels like I'm getting to do what I love doing. I get to write songs with people, I get to have interesting conversations with people, and then knowing that it's a helpful thing is just like is a bonus, But what you're saying then about families is one of the things that we're doing a lot of work on, trying to find the best ways of measuring the impact, which like again is a charity. I'm sure you probably get it with your thing as well. Like with funders, you need to show measurable impact and so we get lots of great stories from people and lots of really nice feedback, but trying to find more ways of doing it. And one of the things we've thought about is whether we can do a longer term follow-up with people. So like if someone, because I was thinking about if I had a song for my grandma, like, and it's one of the things that I'm really interested in is where songs live. Songs don't live on a CD or in an MP3 file. It's like, because once you've heard that song, it's in you and it can be in your head. You can hum it all the time. And like, so this idea, like, if my grandma had a song, how often would I still think about it, and how often would I still sing it, or would I just hear it in my head and think about it? And like everyone has songs that reminds them of certain things, and you can't help it, can you? Like something you'll just hear a song in a pub somewhere, and it might be a song that reminds you of your childhood and things like that. But so I'd like to then be able to follow up with relatives, 5 years after someone's passed, and say, have you listened to the song at all since they've been gone? Is it like, has the meaning changed in any way for you? Has it brought comfort? Have you listened to it at certain times? So now we've been doing it 3 years. So like I've had a bit of that. People have said, you know, like messaged me saying, "Oh, I just want to think, you know, it's the anniversary of my mum's passing, and we all got together and listened to the song again." And like there's a family that I wrote with a patient, and her family were all musical, so they came in and recorded the song, so like they still play the song. You know, it's things like that. It's just the songs live on then, and it feels like the person's back.
That's
when
amazing.
you and it's really nice for me as well. Like we did a concert at Chapel FM, in fact, a year or two ago, where I was playing some of the songs, and one of my trustees who was there said to me afterwards, it's really nice because when you introduce the song, you say a bit about the person, and it's clear that, like, you know, you remember that relationship.
Yeah.
And then he was saying, like, but I wonder how long you'll be able to keep doing that. Of like, if you'll forget, if you know the amount of more songs you do, if you'll start to forget these extra stories that came with them, which might happen. But also, like, the song holds so much. You know, it's not just what it is. It's like when you play it, you're like, oh, that line, and then you're like, I remember that. Yeah, because we were talking about this thing. And
So
this
even if in 10 years you could just listen to that song, and it'll take you back to that person.
Yeah.
Before you introduce it.
I think so.
It gives you that. I mean, the downside to that is if you are bringing other people in, you wouldn't be able to introduce them in the same way, would you?
But that's something what I hope. So like when we've not done many concerts, but we've done a few, and like they're emotionally taxing on me because again, it's going through all those things again. But I really like the idea that hopefully eventually we'll have our concerts will be very diverse, and it'll be like I might come on and introduce it and play a song or two, then we'll have someone else to come in and do the same thing, and then so it just becomes and then like we invite participants to come to them if there's any that are, you know, around, and come and play the song. So
is there anywhere that people can hear them songs, or are they private?
Yeah, no, they're all, well, we give everyone the choice when they finish a song. I say, you know, you can keep it private, and that's completely fine, or if you want, I can put it on the website and share it publicly. So I think there's about 28 maybe, something like that on the website now.
Okay.
Around there.
And you say your website's in the process of being built?
We're getting a new one built. So the old one there's one there at the minute, but we've got a proper company called Agency for Good that are great at doing a new website for us that we're hoping to launch in the next few weeks.
And will it be the same domain?
Yes.
So what is that?
It's swansongproject.co.uk.
Okay.
I'll do the hand thing.
And so the podcasts. So what are the podcasts? You're speaking to other musicians about their songwriting process?
Yeah, so I started the Swan Song Project podcast in lockdown as well, where I'm speaking to other musicians, and we have one of their songs, and they tell us a bit about how they wrote it. Then they share a songwriting tip with us, and then they share with us a song that's meaningful to them in some way relating to bereavement. So I quite like that being quite vague. It's like, so then again, people can kind of go into it as much as they want. Some people will share a song that's like a really potent memory about someone that they might have, you know, heard at a funeral or something like that. Some people it's just a song that, you know, is about death in some way or has an interesting story to it. But that's been great. I think I've done 38 episodes lockdown.
Right.
It was not because at the start of lockdown when everything was so quiet. I just messaged a load of songwriters that I knew and said, fancy this? And was like, yeah, let's do it. What are you doing today? I was like, all right. So we stockpiled it. But yeah, they're all available on the website as well.
Right.
No, they're not. They're not on the current website, but they'll be on the new website.
They'll be on the new one.
Which hopefully will be the next few weeks. They'll be out.
Right.
But they're all on YouTube and Facebook, and I think they're on most of the podcast sites now, as we were talking about earlier. I think they're on Apple Podcasts and stuff like that, and they will hopefully be on Spotify soon.
Right. Brilliant. Listen, it's been amazing to speak to you. I think what you're doing is brilliant, and hopefully it'll be sort of long lasting, and the funding will keep coming in. I hope Chris Evans funding you has a big impact on potential funding in the future. And just don't stop what you're doing.
Yeah, thanks for that. Likewise, man. Yeah, it's really nice to catch up with you properly, and we'll have to keep in touch. And
definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, man.
That's what I mean about the awkward ending. You never know what to. Yeah. You never know what to do.
Need a little outro jingle. Yeah, that was good.
Just about an hour.